In 1917, Carrie Chapman Catt delivered a liberating speech addressed to Congress on behalf of the women's suffrage movement. In her speech, addressed to Congress on women's suffrage, Carrie Catt explains how women's suffrage is inevitable. Catt's purpose was to convince Congress that it is time for women's suffrage. She adopts a confident tone, uses direct quotations, and appeals to logos in order to convince Congress of accepting women. The confident tone is adopted by Catt throughout her entire speech to Congress. Catt opens with "Women's suffrage is inevitable," setting the tone for the rest of her speech. Catt's willingness to speak her thoughts gives her an edgy feel because she believes in this cause and is persistent with Congress. I am going to use the classical form of analysis to explore Carrie Chapman Catt's rhetorical strategies. To do this, I will describe 1. Catt's use of ethos, how she establishes her credibility by identifying with her audience. 2. Pathos, Catt's emotional arguments. And 3. Logos, Catt's logical arguments. First, let's talk about how Carrie Chapman Catt establishes her credibility. She starts off by introducing herself as an American women's suffrage leader. She then continues to back up her credibility by dropping quotes of past leaders to show her extended knowledge on the topic of women's suffrage. Catt reminds Congress that at the beginning of our history we claimed taxation without representation is tyranny. In addition, Catt also incorporates "Ours is a government of people, by people, and for the people." These quotes serve to remind Congress that they represent all people, male or female. Catt uses these quotes because without them, Catt would be discarded as someone who doesn't know what she is talking about. Secondly, I will discuss the use of pathos, or emotional statements, inside Chapman's speech. Although Catt was a very logic-based speaker, she did take her time to appeal to the emotional side of Congress, as she uses various examples of working women to appeal to the ignorance of men. Like she says in her biggest emotional quote, "Behold him again, welcoming the boys of 21 and newly made immigrant citizens to a voice in their own government. While he denies that fundamental rights of democracy to thousands of women, public school teachers from whom many of these men learn all they know of citizenship and patriotism, to women college presidents, to women who preach in our pulpits, interpret the law in our courts, preside over our hospitals, write books and magazines, and serve in every uplifting moral and social enterprise. Is there a single man who can justify such inequality of treatment, such outrageous discrimination? Not one." Lastly, let's talk about Carrie Chapman Catt's strongest appeal, logos. Catt was very well known for her logical appeals towards Congress because she gives off a confident tone and energy in her speeches. One of her best appeals was quoting Woodrow Wilson, where he says, "We are fighting for the things which we have always carried nearest to our hearts, for our democracy, for the right of those who submit to authority to have a voice in their own government." Catt followed up with the chasing statement, "With such history behind it, how can our nation escape the logic it has never failed to follow?" For her use of logos, or use of reasoning, is effective because it aids in the building and credibility of her argument. Not only does Catt use historic quotes to develop her logos, she uses facts to convince Congress that the time has come for women's suffrage. She brings up the fact that we are behind other countries when it comes to the issue. Facts help develop Catt's overall argument because they add to the reasoning behind the need for women's suffrage. After her liberating speech, Carrie Chapman Catt won Woodrow Wilson's respect and support, and ultimately led to the passage of the 19th Amendment, granting women for the right to vote. Today we have learned in Catt's speech that she uses ethos, pathos, and logo strategies effectively, ultimately leading her to her desired outcome, the right for women to vote.